Well, when I got into it as a fan of the genre, with hip hop, what I started, what I've always noticed was that you have these kind of quote unquote established media platforms like 60 Minutes, and they do these really hard hitting interviews where the interviews are so important that they change policy, they cause revolutions, they laws get changed, and so forth. And you have, and when I looked at the hip hop landscape, a lot of the interviews were just really almost like PR, like promo, where a person would come in, they're promoting their album, they get asked a couple softball questions, and then everyone's happy, everyone loves each other, everyone parties together afterwards. Like there's no real line between the journalist and the person who's getting interviewed. So I kind of came in it this going like, okay, I'm going to differentiate myself from everyone else, and I'm going to ask the tougher questions. Like I'm going to ask the uncomfortable stuff. If let's say you have songs about, let's say losing your best friend, I'm going to ask about the details of how you lost your best friend. If you have songs about going to prison, I'm going to talk about, well, what led you to prison and what happened there. If you're a gangster, I'm going to talk about your gang background and so forth. And that was all very taboo at the time. I mean, it still is to a certain degree, but less so. But at the time, it was like nobody was asking these types of questions. It was a big no-no. It was like, don't, just stick, stick to the easy stuff. And so going into it, I said, well, this is what I'm going to do. And since I don't have a big company behind me and I don't have a bunch of money behind me, this is how we're gonna win. And that was really the goal in the beginning, and still to this day of like, okay, we're gonna try to get the best interview, the biggest interview this person's ever done, because we're gonna ask the toughest questions, we're gonna have the most research, and this is really gonna be very important, as well as for a lot of people that we interview, they don't get a Netflix documentary about their life, or they don't have a book written about their life, but when we have a chance to sit down with someone for the first time, we want to get their whole life story, like a John Witherspoon who did his last interview with us before he passed, and people like that. So it was like the approach of trying to go deeper and harder than everyone else and create a product that was worthy of documentaries, but just don't have the budget of a documentary. And by doing that year after year, it started to pan out, and people started to know us for a certain type of thing. And of course, in the process, like, people will try to, call you the police or the feds for the asking type of questions that we ask, and try to say that what we're doing is wrong and we shouldn't be doing it, and artists shouldn't interview with us and so forth. But that just comes with the territory of pushing the envelope. These days it's a lot more commonplace for people to do this kind of stuff. But, by sticking to your guns and creating something, and what I did, really anyone who's in prison right now could come out and do what it is that I do. Like, some of my biggest interviews are criminals. Like, our second biggest interview last year was this guy named Michael Franzese, who was, a high-ranking person in the mafia. That interview, I think, got like almost 20 million views combined. So me interviewing a criminal coming from essentially a non-criminal background, someone coming out of prison could probably do a better job than me at this, because they come with more of a background in this thing. And, it was really just a matter of, you come out, you interview people who you think have interesting stories. They, you have an iPhone, you pretty much have all the tools you need to create a Vlad TV on your own with just a phone. You can even do the editing on a phone these days and upload it straight to YouTube. That's really all it takes. We didn't have all these resources. We didn't have 2008. You didn't have phones that could record high quality video. You didn't, it was just a much different playing field, So it could be done even bigger than what we did by someone who is straight out of prison with no high school diploma. Like, honestly.
Well, I mean, I was, everybody in our program knows, because most of my programs go into prisons and jails. When I went to jail in 1987, there was no internet. There were no cell phones. There were no cameras. There was no YouTube. And I came out in 2013. I'd never sent an email before. So I can relate to what Vlad just spoke about, is that anybody can do it. I pursued a different path, but I still had to learn everything. And that's what I just heard from Vlad. And what I hope that you are listening to as well is that one thing that Vlad did is he made 100% commitment to success. He didn't care what the big industry said. He didn't care that somebody else told him not to do it. He didn't care that he didn't have a Netflix budget. What he made is said, this is what I've got. This is what I'm going to do with it. But I want you to reflect back of how much work he put in along the way. You may be sitting in a cell right now and not have access to a microphone or a camera, but here's what you do have access to: a dictionary and a GED book, so that you can become a better communicator. Because if one thing Vlad is a master communicator. He knows how to draw out a story. He knows how to do research. He knows how to ask the tough questions. And that's what makes him the best in the world at what he does, regardless of how humble he may be in communicating that. That's all the hard work. And overnight success is 20 years in the making. And he's been at this now for 12 years, and he's bigger than Netflix. He's bigger than a lot of these other shows in my mind.
I'm not bigger than Netflix. That's